time for Baseball with the Bard.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Your host of Baseball with the Bard here, Noah Cross, joined today not by Tyler. So our guest today has much better hair, best hair in the business, as many would say. Mr. Joe McGuire, how you doing, sir?
No, excited to be on here today. Sad we don't have our good buddy Tyler.
Absolutely.
Especially because we do have to talk some Red Sox baseball, but
We do.
I am very pleased to be joining you here today.
Yeah, we do have to talk some Red Sox baseball. So Tyler, as you know, is my best friend. So I don't know if this means I have a new best friend. I don't know if Tyler would like that, but
it feels like it, at least for today.
Just for today. All right, yeah, that's fine.
That's
fine. He's not watching right now, so he won't be too. But just to remind everyone who's always watching, we're streaming on Facebook, YouTube at Bard and Cross Entertainment, Twitch at TBard5195, and there he is, Tyler, popping in with the excuse me type of emoji there. It's from Tyler. Sorry, Tyler, we're not actually best friends. We're just saying that for the show, you know. And then you can obviously find us on any one of your favorite podcast platforms. And I say we dive right into this with a hot topic here, Joe, and you probably heard about this. Actually, you're on the show where you Divided We Stand, where you talk politics, all these things going on there. So if you want to hear more about the political side of this, please check that out. But on the baseball side of it, the Major League Baseball's Player Association's chief is open to talks about moving the All-Star game out of Georgia following the new voting laws that were just implemented there by their governor, Brian Kemp. So the 2021 All-Star Game is scheduled to be played at the home of the Atlanta Braves. But as we've seen in the past, MLB has not been one to keep quiet on voicing their opinions on what they feel is right. We saw this at the beginning of the season with the Players Alliance and showing support to the BLM movement in the early 2020 season. We have said it before, and we'll say it again, MLB will stop at nothing to show support to their players. So, Joe, what's your hot take on this? I mean, we've seen it before with MLB not putting up with any crap, right? They say our players want this. This is how they feel. We're going to support them in that. So what do you think?
To not get political on this, what the state of Georgia did, in essence, is to make it more difficult for people, particularly African Americans, to vote. Mm-hmm. As we know, that's what cost them the last election, both the presidency and then the special senatorial runoff races. And so this is sour grapes. Mm-hmm. Again, disenfranchisement of African-American voters. And this is what Major League Baseball has to stand by their players. The NBA has done an excellent job of it. The NFL has done a horrible job of it. Mm-hmm. Baseball's fallen somewhere in the middle. Last summer, though, you saw them finally, I think, yes, do the right thing by their players. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, look, it's a hot topic. There's still a portion of this country, Noah, unfortunately, that thinks Donald Trump won the election and that there was a whole big scam and that Georgia was one of those states. And to you should be excited to know this. There is an investigation currently into whether President Trump attempted to shake down Georgia's Secretary of State to find enough votes to back his claim that he won the state. So there's a lot to unpack there. I think staying out of Georgia is a really good idea for anybody at this point. If you're looking to not be protested, you're definitely going to want to consider that. This is a stupid move by the state of Georgia. Its governor and its Republican legislature were pretty much torn apart by the president because they wouldn't do what he said. Mm-hmm. And then after they wouldn't do what he said, they went to try to change the laws to make sure that doesn't happen again. And what I mean by it doesn't happen again is that they don't lose another election. Yeah, by any means necessary. And that's unfortunate. And it's something that, you know, look, I think any reasonable American should be like, no. I've seen a lot of Republicans come out and condemn what the Georgia legislature has done. We've seen this in other states too, Noah, where they get a Democratic governor coming in and they'll change or lessen the powers of that Democratic governor. Yep. You know, again, anybody who loves the Constitution, loves America, I don't care what party you're in or which party's doing it, you can't like that. Absolutely. This is the right move for baseball, and I hope everybody else follows suit. It's a shame because Atlanta's a great city. There's a lot going on there, but it's 2021.
For sure. I agree.
It's not 1821. Get it together, Georgia.
No, thankfully it's not 1821. You're correct on that. And I think the biggest thing that a lot of people should understand with moving the location of the All-Star game, it's not like this just happens. It's not like last year they said, oh, next year we'll do it in Atlanta, and now they're deciding to change it. I mean, this is something that's planned out for decades. There's a rotation. So much happens. So in my mind, I think they would just jump to whatever next year's location would have been and just kind of push forward and continue that way. Because to move everything, all those moving parts for the All-Star game, especially in this year of how different the season is going to look, of all the things they're going to have to do to keep the players safe. I mean, this is an endeavor for baseball. So it's kudos to them for actually even, what's it called, acknowledging this as an idea to say, we might even consider doing this. That's a big deal.
Well, sure, it's doing something like this. I remember when they were talking about pushing the college football season back, pushing the NCAA tournament back, and it's like, well, we'll just wait 2 months. Those places are, as you said, this stuff's all planned. Things are booked months in advance. So to try to do something on super short notice when, again, this has been locked in for many, 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 many years that this was going to be their all-star game. And so, again, just the fact that they would engage in the logistical nightmare that it is to uproot something. Again, people have already booked hotels years in advance in anticipation of this game. So, kudos to baseball. You're right. I mean, this is going to cost them some money at the end of the day to move this thing, but you want to stay on the right side of history. So kudos to my favorite sport, baseball.
Absolutely. Right move by MLB. I don't know if Tyler was here. He'd probably say, Manfred, good job along those lines. And he would throw a butt in there, but we'll regress from that. We'll move on. Let's go on to a recent retirement. Actually, yesterday, over the last week, former MLB All-Star retires, and there on your screen for our watchers, Gio Gonzalez announced Thursday that he will hang up his cleats after 15 years in the majors. He played for the Athletics, Nationals, Brewers, and White Sox. He retires with a record of 131 and 101 with a career ERA of 3.70. He was traded to the Brewers at the 2018 trade deadline, and he put up solid numbers during his 2 seasons in Milwaukee, but experienced some regression with the White Sox the last season, ultimately leading to his move to the bullpen. He actually posted on Instagram his announcement there, just talking about how his father and his family were so into baseball. His mother introduced him to the game along with his younger brother. He thanked all his fans. He thanked all the teams that he played for. You should definitely go check out that post. It's very emotional, and it's one of those things that you sometimes think about, and a lot of players themselves might even think about, of how they got their start, where they came from, and what led to that point in their career. I mean, 15 years in the majors, 2-time All-Star Gio Gonzalez, looking back at this picture of him and his little brother playing baseball, in Little League here, and, with the bats larger than they are. So it's really a cool thought to think about, where you start and where you finish. And I mean, if you ask me, Gio Gonzalez had one hell of a career. So, I mean, I wish him the best in his retirement. Joe, I don't know if you knew, but he was actually a non-roster player for the Brewers in this spring. So they just let him come on he wanted to, I guess, see what he could do. And after a couple of weeks, he decided he was going to retire. So what's your thought process with Gio Gonzalez, his career, and what he's done?
Well, sad. I like this guy a lot. When the Yankees actually signed him last offseason to a minor league contract, unfortunately, he did not make the team. Sort of like this year when the Yankees signed Jules Chacin. He's going to be a depth piece sitting around at AAA, and if the need is there, he would be there. I would take, again, last year my thought was, oh, hey, Gio Gonzalez, man, if that's the guy we got to plug in, that'd be great. It's rough when a guy ultimately comes up to the end of his career, and I think he knew it was there last year. I think the thought of maybe going to the National League seemed like, if I'm going to prolong this, that's probably the place I'd want to go. And you get out there and get hit around a little bit. And I think when your time is done.
For sure.
But this guy, I mean, for 15 years, he's been, to me, like what you want out of a number 3 starter. Right? I mean, wins more games than he loses every year. ERA, between 3 and 4. A good clubhouse guy. I'm glad he's going out on his terms.
Absolutely.
And the post was beautiful. I read that this morning. A little tear in my eye. I'm still I bought my first ever UFC pay-per-view last night. I love Stipe Miocic. got knocked out cold.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not going to lie. About an hour afterwards, I had a little tear in my eye. Got a little weepy for my man Stipe. So, I feel for these guys. They become such an important part of your life. And while I'm not the biggest Gio Gonzalez fan, again, he's just a guy I always thought, in all my fantasy, anytime you can get a Gio Gonzalez for a couple bucks, you're like 15 wins. This guy's going to be solid. The game is changing and everybody's going younger. And, I think if you're 37, 38 and you're, suddenly a ERA around 4 is awful.
Yeah.
Whereas if you did it when you were 34, people would have been a little more forgiving about it. Once you start to get up there in age, I feel like the leash gets shorter because, again, a guy like Gio, that's a guy you're signing to $1 million contract to bring in the camp. That's the kind of clout he has. And you could bring in somebody for much less to compete for a roster spot. Why wouldn't you do that?
Absolutely.
And so you've seen it the last few years, guys like Neil Walker struggling to find a bench spot somewhere. I mean, a professional baseball hitter can't find a job. And you look at some of the teams in the depth and you're like, well, how is this guy not working somewhere? Doesn't make any sense. But, dollars make a big difference in baseball. And it's really, I think the last 2 or 3 years now, the way the finances are in baseball, there's less willingness to spend big money. Again, right? We're seeing it. No, we're like 3 guys get big contracts in the offseason. That's it. Maybe 2. You're not, and then again, you see a lot of the free agent veterans, those guys that are 32, 33, not superstars, just solid players struggling to find jobs or having to take $3 million contracts to prove it. I mean, imagine asking a guy like Neil Walker to prove it. Hey, prove you can hit 290 again with 10 homers. Okay, sure. But that's the state of baseball. So it's sad. You're starting to see the changing of the guard. And I think you'll see more guys in the Gio Gonzalez category start to go away, which is sad.
No, that's the truth. And 2 points what you said. First was the money side of it, right? It's getting a guy like Gio. Even when the Yankees signed Kluber, sure, he didn't have a great last 2 seasons. But when I heard even a little bit of a rumbling that the Yankees were thinking about Kluber, I said in my head, there's no way they gave him less than 10. Right. Because that's just disrespectful. Right. Like it's not going to happen. I don't care if he pitched a singular game in 2020. They gave him $11 million. Why? Because he's who he is. He's Corey Kluber. Cy Young, I don't care what he's done in the last 2 years. That's just the way it works. However, if you look at a lot of these teams that are in these types of spots where, you have legendary players like Aaron Judge, for example, Walker Buehler, Josh Hader, those 3 guys that I just mentioned are still in arbitration. It is unreal what teams look like today simply because of what arbitration is, how long players are in it. Aaron Judge might peak in arbitration. Sure, he's going to get a monster contract when he's done. And I think he has arbitration for the next 3 years, 4 years, something along those lines. He's going to get a monster contract. But to me, it's just insane when you look at what it is for players, what these players are making. And they're literally the faces of their franchise. Like Aaron Judge is the New York Yankees right now. If you get off the train at Yankee Stadium, you see one face. It's Aaron Judge. You know whose face was there before that? Derek Jeter. All right. And that's a fact. That's a fact. And Aaron Judge is in arbitration, and he's not making these multi-million-dollar Machado, Bryce Harper bucks yet. But it's just insane what contracts are in baseball today and how, honestly, sometimes teams are a little stingy.
Look at Fernando Tatis Jr. Kid's 22 years old, gets a 13-year contract for millions of dollars.
Yep.
Our boy, Mr. Judge, going on 28. Still under rookie contract.
Absolutely.
Here. He's in his arbitration years. And, I know there's I get it and I don't get it. This guy's going to have to get paid.
Oh, I absolutely.
And if the Yankees don't do it, somebody else will. Somebody would take a flyer on that guy. And much like with Corey Kluber, there's going to be a floor where you're going to have to start at, and it's going to be pretty high. So
for the name alone, that's insane contract territory.
Yeah.
And that was the first point. The second point was you talked about you getting a little emotional, tear in your eye when you read Gio's post, and I was there with you. Obviously, I was emotional when with Gio, and like you said, these players are a part of us at this point, right? Like they don't know who we are, but I'll tell you this: my grandmother and I went to CC's retirement ceremony, pre-COVID, obviously, and I remember standing in the stands. I had my Sabathia jersey on. I have Cole on today, but I had my Sabathia jersey on, and my grandmother has never been a big fan of CC. I don't know why. I don't ask. Never been a big fan. She I won't say the things that she says, but she's never been a big fan of CC, and I'm a huge fan. You know, I'm standing there and I'm sobbing. Like I am in this crowd. CC's going around the little golf cart, waving at all the fans, and I am standing, applauding, and I'm just literally in tears because CC Sabathia is retiring. And I remember being a little kid watching baseball with my grandfather, you know, in the living room, and CC's going out there dealing, and I'm, you know, cheering him on. I didn't know what the hell was going on, right? But now I'm a grown man, right? I'm in the stands, remembering all those moments where CC brought joy to my life. He's retiring, like that's it, he's done, and I'm crying. And my grandmother, of all people, is looking at me like, "Come on, like it's really it's baseball. It's baseball."
Game 5 of the 2001 World Series is an the ninth inning in particular, off-played video, especially on social media. They played at Yankee Stadium a lot. It's referring, of course, to Paul O'Neill, his last inning as a Yankee at Yankee Stadium, and the fans the whole inning. Paul O'Neill. I'm going to get choked up just talking about it.
Like Joe, just you painting that picture for me, I got chills. I got chills.
So do I.
Yep.
Dude, my wife laughs at me. My wife is like, you cry when Khabib retired, but you don't cry about like, and I'm like, well, because these are different, you know? I was at Paul O'Neill Day, Posada, Pettit, Mariano, and Jeter. I mean, as these guys got their day, I was there. And I'm not ashamed to admit, dude, every single time I get super nostalgic for this stuff. You know, these guys it got good in my 20s, and I grew up a Yankee fan in the 80s, and it was misery. As great as Don Mattingly was, and Dave Winfield, and Ricky Henderson, Willie Randolph, Ron Guidry, Dave Righetti, they just never won. And it was so frustrating. And then I got to be, I'm college age, man, right? 96 is when, you know, they start winning all these championships, and you just love those guys. You know, the 96, 98, 99, 2000 Yankees, the 98 team in particular, one of the greats of all time, without a superstar player on the team. It was, when you talk greatest teams of all time, to me, the 98 Yankees, just because literally 1 through 9, 1 through 5 in the rotation. And that's any one of those guys, the tears would just start flowing. I mean, though that meant a lot to me at that point in my life. It was so many years of watching every Yankee game on WPIX with my mom, and the Yankees sucking for many. I remember 1987, in August of 87, they lost to the Rangers 20-3. Rick Cerrone, my favorite all-time Yankee. He was a lousy catcher for them when I was growing up, but I loved him. Ended up pitching the 9th inning. That's how bad things were. So yeah, this is super emotional. Again, anytime a guy hangs them up, you know, or you know, even I get annoyed too. You know, look, Giancarlo Stanton missed a lot of time last year, as did Judge. You know, and all the haters. It's like, dude, you know how much this means to these guys?
Absolutely.
Not everybody's Jacoby Ellsbury or Carl Pavano, where they're just going to sit on their asses and collect dough, you know, and not help their team. You look at a guy, I remember Andy Pettit when he admitted he took HGH, and they were like, why would you do that? And he was like, just wanted to get back on the field and help my teammates. And you're like, yeah, take that HGH, man. Do it. Do it for the right reasons.
Absolutely. No, I feel you. And as you know, we have a wrestling show, which is right after this, right? Cross from Wrestling Entertainment. And I've had similar reactions when wrestlers retire. I remember being, no lie, I was like 11 or 12 years old when Ric Flair retired. You know who Ric Flair is. Of course. And Shawn Michaels, who's my favorite wrestler of all time, had to retire him. Like if Ric Flair lost to Shawn at WrestleMania, Ric Flair had to retire. And I remember Shawn was crying when he did his finishing move on Ric Flair, because he was like
sweet chin music.
Yes, exactly.
Oh,
and he pinned him, And I was just sitting there as an 11 or 12-year-old on my couch with my mom and my dad and my sister, and I started to cry. And my mom could not understand what was going on. Like, she was just literally looking at me like, where did I go wrong? And the next night on Monday Night Raw, same thing. Ric Flair came out, and like Undertaker, Triple H, all these guys came out to pay their respects, be like, thank you for your career. You were great. And I'm still sobbing like a day later. And my mom's like, listen, if you don't stop, I'm not going to watch wrestling anymore. Like, this is too much. But that's just how emotion. That's what happens. It's just different. You have emotions like that. And I think it's because you rely so much on what those people do for you. Like, watching CC all those years, like I said, bring me joy in my life. Like, I'm pumping my fist and cheering because CC's out there freaking dealing, right? It's just what happens. It's sports. It translates. It's like an out-of-body experience almost. Just a different emotion that you have.
You know, for me too, I have I love Gary Sanchez still, and I feel like he's going to turn it around. I try not to be critical of these guys because, again, like you said, you're following these guys day in and day out, and you're cheering for them. When they're down, I feel down for them. When they're up, I'm excited for them. Like, that's the way my fandom has always gone. You know, sure, I want Judge to play 162 games. Same with Stanton, but I understand they're hurt and they can't be there, and I know they don't like that. And I know they got to play more games and be more productive. I get all that, but at the same time, I'm not ready to, this guy sucks. He never plays. Oh, it's going to be another. Come on. Like, what is wrong with you? You know, I love the game. I did just love it. And when you get a good team, a good group of guys together, like we've seen the Yankees over the last few years from the Toe Show a few years ago, you know, you see a different kind of Yankees, a more fun kind of Yankees than they ever were before. They were much more business-like under George Steinbrenner in the 90s and then into the 2000s. This is a more fun group with Aaron Boone.
I was just going to say, they're having fun. They are.
Yeah. And I really enjoy it. I really do.
Oh, I agree 100%. The let the kids play mantra is alive in New York, and I love every second of it. I'm all about it. So, Gio Gonzalez, congratulations on one hell of a career. You know, it's hard to hang up the boots and anything. And as Joe and I said, we're on the fan side of it, but we feel for you in that respect. So, all the best, and we'll obviously hope to see you around at maybe some old timers day or something like that, or two. You know, so we'll see you around. MLB is a close community, so I imagine not going anywhere. So, we're going to go into a little bit of a hot topic here, Joe. Hot topic if you're Tyler. And I'm only throwing this on here because I want to see how you feel about it, because I know your knowledge of baseball. I know your fandom of baseball. Trevor Bauer is a Dodger. Tyler Bard hates every second of it. Hates it with a living passion. I, Noah, think it's amazing. I think it's hilarious. I was always a huge Trevor Bauer fan. I can't say I'm more of a fan because he is a Dodger, but it didn't change anything. But Tyler is on the fence. He doesn't know what to do about the fact that Bauer is on the best team in the game, and they just got even better. So what do you feel, Joe? What are you thinking?
Well, look, I would say this, if anybody's watched the way that Clayton Kershaw's pitched so far this year, it hasn't looked good. And the reason they went out and got Trevor Bauer isn't because they thought their pitching rotation was the best. It's because they definitely thought it was still a little flawed. As good as it is, as deep as it is, it still wasn't quite perfect. There's not a lot of guys, baseball players, that I follow on Twitter. Trevor Bauer is one of them.
Oh, yeah.
I love this guy. I like that he has a mind of his own, that he has opinions. He could be a little bit of a conspiracy theorist at times, but I don't have a problem with that either. Look, the Dodgers went and addressed what they thought was their biggest issue. And for anybody who thought, like, this is the rich getting richer, I don't see it that way. I see this as this team knew it had a real need. I think the money they gave him is absurd. He's a very good pitcher. I don't think he's an ace. I don't think he's in the same category as Garrett Cole and some of these other like A1 guys. I think he's a grade below. He's coming off a great season. He's been very vocal about the guys, the way they've been doctoring balls and the spin rate and all that other stuff, even though he does it too, which I find kind of interesting. You know, he seemed to really embrace it full on last year, had the best year of his career. So ride that out and get your money. Go do it in LA. It's a shame it's not going to be with the Yankees, but I was going to say I kind of like Kluber better than Bauer, but if I'm being honest, no, I do like Bauer better. Just I thought he would have been very entertaining in New York.
I agree. And that I think is why the Yankees weren't so dead set on getting him. The Yankees don't like that kind of guy. And that's the truth. They're like
facts.
You said that they used to be all business in the Steinbrenner era, and they've gone away from that. However, that side of it still exists in some respect. I remember Garrett Cole's press conference after he signed the huge contract with the Yankees. Huge deals. Who's news, right? And at the press conference, all of the Yankee executives who were on the board there up at the front in the press conference, they were interviewed afterwards by Michael Kay. And the one thing they kept on saying, it wasn't that we're so excited we have Cole, which they were, right? It wasn't that, oh, this is a good deal, it's going to be great for New York. Yeah, which it was, sure. They kept saying how much of a class act Garrett Cole was. Like, that was the biggest thing that they kept griping on, was this was an A-plus press conference. He did so good. Like, it was a first grader at their first recital. Like, they were just so proud of Garrett Cole being, a grown-up, I guess, in a sense. And, I mean, if you've seen Trevor Bauer in action, as you said, you like following him on Twitter for a reason. And I follow him on Twitter for the same reason, and Instagram, because he's entertaining.
Yeah.
He's that guy. He's gonna be vocal about everything. I don't care what the topic is. And I became a Trevor Bauer fan when he was trashing the Astros. That was the biggest draw. And that's why Tyler likes him too. We actually own Bauer Outage merchandise.
Oh, no kidding.
Of like trash throws with Trevor Bauer on it, like a trash can, but all that good stuff. That's why I'm a fan of Trevor Bauer. As much as I would love to see him in New York, because he's a good player, he would have been entertaining. Absolutely. I don't think he would have been the best fit for a Yankee organization.
Well, look at the way people reacted earlier this spring when Zach Britton expressed an opinion about Domingo Germán.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what did he really say? He was like, you can't pick your teammates, unfortunately. I don't agree what he did. There's no place for it on or off the field. And people were like, how dare Zach Britton speak out like that? It's like, well, he's their union rep, number one. So, yes, that's the guy that would speak out. And then people were like, well, what do these guys care what he does in his personal life? Well, he did miss the last 2 postseasons.
Because of it.
And they certainly could have used his arm either as a starter or even as a reliever. But his pathetic, selfish actions hurt his teammates. So, yeah, his teammates have every right to be pissed about, A, what he did, B, the fact that he chose to do that and that it hurt the entire team.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of reasons. But again, you saw Yankee fans pretty quick jump down Zach Britton's neck. And it's like, you guys didn't even know who Domingo Germán was before 2019. So what are you even talking about?
Exactly. No, I agree. And that's
don't
just
rock the boat is the point.
Yes,
don't rock
absolutely.
the boat.
That's just the way it is, unfortunately, with fan bases. Sometimes people just think they're the brightest person in the room when it comes to talking about their team, right? They can tell Aaron Boone how to manage, which we do that sometimes too, but that's our job. Those are
If
just,
you've got helpful suggestions, yes.
But don't just bash the players.
I was screaming for weeks that I thought DJ LeMahieu should have been the leadoff guy. And for weeks, it wasn't happening. And it was Gardner. And I'm like, look at the numbers, dude. And then they finally did DJ. And I was like, you know what? I was banging the drum. I'm not saying Aaron Boone. But again, dude, I think when enough people hear an idea, it does eventually travel to the source.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not saying I made DJ hit leadoff, but I didn't hurt the cause.
No, that's definitely true. You did make DJ hit leadoff. I don't know if you had anything to do with the deal that DJ decided to strike with the Yankees. I thank you for that as well, because that is also just.
By the way, I called that exact contract months and months and months before it happened. I knew that's where they were going to land. Yeah, there was a ton of posturing between these two teams.
True. That's true.
And it's funny again, dude, when you looked at the way the public sort of initially was like, pay that man, give him whatever he wants. And then as soon as they heard DJ like, look, I'm going to start talking to other teams if you guys don't get serious. People were like, let him walk. We don't need that guy. And you're like, what is wrong with you, dude? 2 weeks ago, you wanted to open up the Brinks truck, back it up, and let him take what he wants. Now you want him to go play for the Blue Jays? What? You people are insane. It was, and all I kept saying to people is, guys, look, He's going to end up in New York.
Absolutely.
This is public posturing. They put it on him. He's got to want to come back, right? Well, we're going to make him an offer, but he's got to want to come back. And he was like, yeah, any day now. I want to come back. And they know that. They know what the deal is. He put it back on the Yankees, and then the Yankees kicked it back over to him. It was a weird, ugly negotiation. It made me think of, I don't know if you remember a couple of years back when Dellin Betances was in his first year of arbitration, and he went in. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think he wanted $8 million, or he wanted 10, and they offered him 8. And you would think 9 would have just been the end of the day, right? You call it. They went to an arbitration thing, and in the meeting, when he's there, they trashed him to his face. And he ended up getting the $8 million and walked, over $2 million. Like, that relationship was forever strained. And it made 0 sense for them to do that.
I call that the classic. Jared, you have a point. You really have to respect what Joe has done with the Yankees in New York.
I just want to be clear. What I'm saying is I was beating the drum. And again, I'm not saying necessarily they were like, oh, hey, Joe Aguirre said. But again, I think when rumors get out there or thoughts get out there, all it takes is one reporter from the Post to see it, be like, hey, Booney, why don't you bat this guy first? Look at the numbers. It comes from somewhere. Again, I'm not saying it was me, but I'm not saying it wasn't me.
That's also valid. And I'll say simply that we don't know what you do in your personal time. You could be a special advisor to Aaron Boone or even Cash. All right. We don't know.
And if I were, I would probably have to sign an NDA and I wouldn't be able to talk about it.
This is true. So we wouldn't know regardless. So Joe, at the end of this though, you are a fan of Bauer being on the Dodgers. It's kind
big
of
time.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. I mean, look, if he wasn't going to be on the Yankees, put him on the Dodgers. He'll be just as entertaining there. And either way, I think we'll see him in the World Series.
Okay, I like it. So we have Joe's World Series pick very, very early there.
Yeah, you got that.
Speaking of playoff ball, the Fox MLB on Fox's Facebook page, they do a poll every year, and basically it's the MLB fan base voting for who they think is going to win each division, right? We're simply going to say, do we agree? I think the first one we can get out of the way very quickly. The AL East goes to the Yankees. Yes or no? Yes.
Right. By the way, they're plus 550 favorites to represent the American League in the World Series.
Wow.
And the Dodgers are only plus 350 in the NL. So Vegas is pretty certain the Yankees are going to be there, even more so than the Dodgers.
I like it. We'll get more in depth into the Yankees there. Who do you think the Yankees' biggest threat might be in the East? It's a tough question.
I was gonna, everybody wants to say Tampa. I'm not so sure. I think Toronto might be the better team, but I have some concerns with their pitching. Okay,
I agree. I mean, you have Ryu. He didn't have an incredible season last year. I've always been a Ryu fan.
You've got a bunch of number 3 starters in Toronto.
You know what? That makes sense.
And my concern is they're all pretty good pitchers, but when you're matching those 3s up to the 1s and the 2s, that's not generally gonna work out for you.
Yeah, and honestly, as far as I'm concerned, we don't know what Kluber can still do, right? We know what he's done in the past. We don't know what he can still do. He might be a number 1 still. The Yankees might actually have landed 2 number 1 pitchers right now. I mean, this is a former Cy Young Award winner. He's not just some guy that they just He's not just some guy that they just signed. Okay, and they're not sure what to expect. I mean, they're not sure what to expect, but we know he's good. I think.
Can I just speak on that for a quick second?
Sure.
Here's what I expect from him: domination.
I agree with you,
because there's no reason why, short of him re-injuring himself, why he wouldn't just get back to doing what he's always done. And I laugh because, again, if Corey Kluber had signed with any other team, nobody would be questioning what he's going to do this year.
We do have Kluber slated in the Yankee segment, so I want you to. Please hold, because I love the energy. Hold it.
Gotcha. I jumped the gun.
No, you're good. So Yankees are winning the AL East. That's not even a question. NL East, Atlanta Braves, What do you? I agree. I think the Braves are going to win. I think their new acquisition of Charlie Morton is going to be big for that team. You saw Freddie Freeman. You saw a lot of star power there. Brian Snitker, their manager, is still old school, and I think Charlie Morton's going to mesh well with that. So, what do you think there, Joe?
Yeah, and they've got a center fielder of the future in Christian Pecci. One of my really good friends is a Braves fan. I actually end up watching quite a few Braves games. I watched their playoff run last year. This is a really good team. It's funny. They sort of got ahead of themselves and made the postseason in 2019. It didn't go as well. They got blown out in their decisive fifth game. It was a rough way to end the season, but the timeline had been sped up, and Braves fans were optimistic last year. Looked really good again. Did that with all sorts of pitching issues. So, yeah, I still think, despite what the Mets and the Nationals have been up to, and the Phillies, I still think the Braves are the class of the division.
I went 100%. Braves are the class of the division, and I do see a comment here from Steve, I think, saying that the Braves and Mets are going to get the wild card. I don't know about that. I think
three teams coming out of the same division, really?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
That's a lot. The Met, I think I do see the Mets in the wild card. That I would put them there. I think the Braves are going to win the division though by a decent amount as well at that. Next up, the AL Central goes to the White Sox. If you ask the MLB fan base, what do you think? What's your opinion on this one, Joe?
That seems pretty likely. I think you are got kind of feeling the Indians a little bit more.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm still not 100% sold on these White Sox, and so I think if you put a gun to my head and ask me, I probably would be with you. I would probably say the Indians are still the better team.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. I mean, the White Sox have been building for a while now, and they have a lot of really good players. I mean, Tim Anderson, Lucas Giolito, they have a lot of star power, a lot of good potential. I just think the Indians are going to be where they were last year. I think Bieber's also going to be where he was, and I think he's going to just rip through every team he faces. Sure, they're down on Lindor, but I don't think it's going to matter. To be completely frank, it's not going to matter. So the AL Central, if you ask Joe and Noah, is going to go to the Indians, not the White Sox. Sorry, MLB fan base. NL Central, the MLB fan base predicted the Cardinals with their newest acquisition, Nolan Arenado. I mean, that would be a big deal. I mean, because they made it very far in the last 2 years with their manager coming close to manager of the year both times. So, Joe, what do you think of what was the team? The Cardinals taking the NL Central.
I will always go with the Cardinals in the Central when any season starts. I think that's always a safe bet because the Cardinals, to me, really are the Yankees of the National League in terms of this is, to me, a team that's always competitive. You rarely ever see this team down and out. They struggled with COVID issues last year and still were in the thick of things like they always are. They always seem to find a way to bring in new guys who end up being big contributors. So yeah, I'll say the Cardinals. I could go along with that.
All right, fair enough. And I agree 100%. The Cardinals are going to take their division easily. And I think Nolan Arenado is just going to bolster them even more to be going where they're going to be heading. Jack Flaherty is going to keep it up in the rotation. They're not going to have much of an issue there. Next up, we have the AL West. This was a little surprising to me.
This is a joke, right?
This is the MLB fan base has unanimously voted that the Angels are going to win the AL West. You heard that correct, ladies and gentlemen. The Angels, Mike Trout, will see a postseason game. I disagree 110,000%. If you not even a question about it, I'm sorry. The Angels are not going to win their division. Will the Angels make their wild card? No, they're not going to do that either. The Astros are going to win the division simply because the Angels don't have a starting rotation. I'm sorry. Dylan Bundy is your number one starter. That's your guy going out there for your first game. You're telling me that team's going to win their division over Zach Greinke, Jake Andrade, Lance McCullers, who just got a crazy contract, Justin Verlander. I'm sorry. I just don't see it. Sure, you have Trout. Sure, you have Ohtani, and you have your new third baseman there and the likes of Rendon. I don't see it.
Well, Las Vegas sees Oakland and Houston finishing well ahead of the Angels in that division. They've got the Angels winning maybe 83 games this year. So,
yeah.
Listen, here's the problem with sports society in 2021 is that people have been spoon-fed the ESPN hype machine for so long that they really have a hard time sometimes getting out of their own way. The Angels are not going to win the division just for the exact reason you said. Dylan Bundy is their ace. I mean, do these people watch baseball? I love Mike Trout. He's awesome, man.
Yes.
Well, him and Rendon were there last year. How'd that go?
And Ohtani.
And Ohtani. And Albert Pujols. One of the greatest players of all time. But there's no talent around Mike Trout, they keep telling me. No talent? Really? Albert Pujols? That's not talent? Cole Calhoun was there for a while. That's not talent? Give me a break.
Yeah. I mean, the saying is usually it takes more than one player to win a World Series, but in the Angels case, it takes more than 4 to win a World Series because we just named 4 of tremendous players who have been nothing but in the news because of how good they are. But I've said it year after year after year. They don't have any pitching, period. Yes, Astros win it. No one else gets in. I agree. And I hate to say it. However, I will say this. Joe, you're a Yankees fan. I need your honest opinion on this.
Yeah.
Is it a problem that I am a huge Carlos Correa fan?
Yes. I don't like that.
Okay.
I don't like that. I understand it. Great player, but I don't like it.
You know who he reminds me of? You know who he reminds me of, though? And another player that I loved as a kid who was an infamous Yankee. And no one can understand it. A-Rod.
Yeah.
I love A-Rod. And Correa gives me that vibe because he's good and he knows he's good. I know, Tyler, you're a Red Sox fan. That's a massive problem. And I've said this before. If you look at last season when the Astros were in the playoffs, I kept referring to Correa as a beast because he is. Like, if you look at what happened in the transition of the Astros cheating scandal and then the next season, and a lot of them sucked. Like, Altuve fell off a cliff. Like, you didn't know what happened to a lot of people. Bregman didn't do that well. Correa kept it straight. Like, Correa said, all right, like, sure, we cheated, but I'm going to go out there and I'm going to mash still. And he did. Yeah.
Trash cans or no trash cans. He's still hitting.
So that's why I like him. That is an issue. We'll move on from that. Let's get to the NL West, which is the obvious pick of the Dodgers. You agree with that, correct?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
You scared me for a minute. You paused.
Although, I would say this, like, don't sleep on the Padres.
I knew you were going to say Padres, and a lot of people are saying Padres as their, the next great thing in the NL West. I don't know. I just don't see it. I know Tyler's going to pick the Padres to win the World Series. I'm going to tell you right now, folks, spoiler alert, when we have our episode at the end of the first week of the season next week, Tyler will pick the Padres to win the World Series.
I don't think they're going to be good enough to win the World Series. I still think there's still too many pitching issues. Danielson Lamet, their young stud, is not going to, which stinks because he's on my fantasy team, will not be starting the season. He's still got some more work to do before he's ready to go. I just don't know. It's a great young team. I think they'll win a lot of games. I just think the Dodgers will win more. Vegas has them winning 103 and the Padres winning 93. So they're probably not winning the World Series. It's going to be good.
Think about that, though. They're going to win. They're projected to win 93 games, but that's still not good enough.
Not even close. That's going to have them about 10 back.
That's nuts.
That's a scary thought. That's how good, again, on paper. This is all on paper. I mean, we got to go out there. We got to win these games. Again, you could easily say, look, Clayton Kershaw is going to win a whole bunch of games this year and pitch. Nothing I've seen this spring makes me feel like he's going to be okay. If he could just flip a switch in a week or two and everything, then I hope so. But if he's pitching like he's been pitching, this might not work out as planned.
Absolutely. And we'll see what happens coming up in the season here. We'll obviously at the end of the season how good the Dodgers are going to be. And no predictions yet for the World Series from either of us. Me saying Tyler's going to pick the Padres just because I can poke the bear, and I like to because I can get away with it with Tyler. Not a lot of people can. But with that being said, speaking of predictions, it's the major prediction here is that Clovercrest Media has a lot of great stuff going on right now. So let's take a look at what's going on over at Clovercrest.
The Closing Time Podcast is back, sponsored by Rocky Hill Accountants. I'm Joe Aguirre. I'll have a brand new co-host, Sanam Salati, who's my broker, my mentor, and my good friend, and one of the most knowledgeable people in Connecticut in the entire real estate industry. We're going to be talking about the latest goings-on. We'll keep you up to date on the market, and we're going to bring on some really great guests all throughout this season, people in all different fields in the industry, like accountants, home inspectors, mortgage reps, and so much more, just to give you a better understanding of the Connecticut real estate market. We're so excited for a brand new season of the Closing Time Podcast, part of the CMG Podcast Network. It's sponsored by Rocky Hill Accountants. Go see Heidi and Glenn Parchman to file your taxes for bookkeeping, business advice, real estate investments, or whatever your accounting needs are, including cryptocurrency. Just visit RockyHillAccountants.com. We'll see you all season long on the Closing Time Podcast.
Welcome to Ivy League Murders. On this podcast, we focus on cases affiliated with the Ivy League, exploring the darker side of higher education. What happens when genius becomes evil? My name is Sarah Alcorn. I'm a Harvard graduate, and I've been a private investigator since 1999. Join me and longtime crime diva Laura McDonald for Ivy League Murders.
Damn good lead. Okay, all right. We're still doing okay. Oh, wow. Where did this Mr. Beast come from? Dodge. All right, Drew. Oh!
Oh my god! Sniped. Absolutely sniped, bro. Absolutely sniped.
Tyler and that Fall Guys over there, always doing things that I just shake my head at because I don't play, so I don't know how he does it. He's made me play a couple of times, and I'm just like, I can't play this game.
What is that game?
It's called Fall Guys. It's basically like a race. You have to make it from one end to the other, and that's pretty much it. And he's really good at making it to the other end, and I'm not.
I think my daughter plays that game.
Fair enough. How old's your daughter?
She's 8.
Okay, good. Yeah, all right. All right. With that being said, let's hop into some Yankee. Actually, this is weird. I'm going to go Yankee, Boston, then Yankee, but this is a separate story in itself. Luke Voit headed to the IL, folks. News broke yesterday that the Yankees' first base slugger, Luke Voit, would need a knee surgery to repair a partially torn meniscus. Voit sported an average of 263, an OPS of 842 with 21 home runs in 2019. So obviously a very valuable part of the Yankees lineup. Voit is scheduled to make his return sometime in May or June. We don't actually know yet when he's going to come in. But the big question now that's lingering over the Yankees' head is who fills the Voit at third base.
I like that.
The Voit at third base.
So a couple of days ago, Jay Bruce was scratched from the starting lineup. He was basically going to go home and see what the Yankees were going to do as far as a roster spot was concerned. Derek Dietrich did that as well. He also packed up and he went home. And they both assumed they weren't making the team. And then this injury happened. And then there was even question about whether Mike Tauchman was going to make the roster if Jay Bruce made the roster. And now everybody's on the roster except for Derek Dietrich. Him and Robinson Chirinos are gone. But Jay Bruce is going to get the bulk of playing time at first base. Not a first baseman, though.
Nope.
He's only played 25 major league games at first base in his career. But I think, as most people can tell you, it's the easiest position to play on the field. It really is. Not that it doesn't take great talents to be a first baseman, but you could get away with a little bit less. I think what you'll also see is probably some Tyler Wade at second, where you'll see LeMahieu play first. I'm still shocked that they've never asked Miguel Andujar to grab a first baseman's mitt and give that a shot. That could have been a nice short-term solution and get his bat into the lineup. But I think it's going to be Jay Bruce. I think he pencils it nice with that lefty bat. You know, we know he could still pop the homers. I mean, he still has some power. My big fear is, though, and I think you and I have talked about this before, when we get these lefties like McCann and Giambi, those guys, they try to pull everything into the seats.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and the batting average plummets to like the 220s.
Well, that's funny you say that. If you look at Bruce's batting average, I mean, he's sporting 2 home runs in his spring play. His average down to 194. I mean, you know, if you think compare it to Aaron Judge, his average is higher. He only hit 1 home run. It's still spring, sure, but that's just the reality of what it's like playing. I mean, he hasn't played at Yankee Stadium yet, but I mean, that's probably what it's in his mindset of, let me yank all of these over the right field wall.
Yep. Well, and as a matter of fact, one of his home runs was actually an Oppo Taco. He hit it into the left field seats. So, but yeah, again, my fear is, dude, once you get to Yankee Stadium and you're standing at home plate and you look in the right field, you're like, that is so close. I think I'm just going to try to put every ball into those seats. And again, I think Giambi and McCann are perfect examples of you still got to hit the baseball.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially when you get here. Both of those guys were 300 hitters before they came to the Yankees, and both settled in around the 240 mark as a Yankee. Yeah. I think the good thing is there was some talk about Voit just doing a little rehab and playing through this. And ultimately, Booney decided, because you've got Jay Bruce and because the way this will work out, you could still keep Toppin on the roster. Voit goes to the IL. It buys you some time, lets some things shake out. Once Voit comes back, he should be fine. I mean, this isn't like a serious injury. And again, it's certainly an injury he could have just rehabbed and played through for the rest of the spring. And I like the idea of getting it done now.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
I think if you look at Severino a couple of years ago, he should have had the Tommy John in 2018. Should have just done it then. I don't know why they waited. That was stupid. So get this thing taken care of now. I don't think this is going to hurt the Yankees in any way, shape, or form. And I think when you can say the major league's home run leader won't be missed, that's a good sign for your team. And I think it speaks to the amazing depth that this Yankee team comes in with.
Absolutely. I mean, it's obviously an issue that Voigt's not going to be there, but as you said, there's so many big players in the Yankees organization that can pull up their bootstraps and get in there and kind of just pick up where he left off, or try and at least compensate for what they're going to be missing. And Jay Bruce is a good fit there. I mean, the headlines were screaming home run Jay Bruce hit 2 home runs. That was a big deal. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a big deal that he was still able to put the wood in the ball like that. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do at first. Hopefully the lefty bat is going to break up that heavy right Yankees lineup there for us a little bit, and we'll see where that goes. So from one city to another, we're going to hop over. Yes, Tyler, next man up mentality is right. You got to love it. Even though I wouldn't consider Jay Bruce to be the baby boomer, baby bomber, as we should say, generation there, not even by a little bit. But with that being said, let's hop over to Tyler's boys here, the Boston Red Sox, as they are 13-10 in spring play with 4 days left until opening day. Look at the Red Sox there, 13-10. Okay, that's not. We'll get there. We'll get there. Notables during the spring have been Martin Perez, who's 2-2 with an ERA of 3. Erod, who's 3-0 with an ERA of 2.63. Oh, Eduardo Rodriguez, come on, killing it. And Bobby Dahlbeck, the rookie here of the Red Sox organization, has a batting average of 310. 310. So I have 3 questions here. We'll start with the first one. Are we surprised by what the Sox have done so far in spring play? Personally, I'd say I'm a little bit surprised. Their record is good. They've had a lot of great bounce backs in the likes of Erod. Bobby Dahlbeck is doing things that we knew he was going to be good, but I think he's outperforming what anyone thought he was going to do. So I'm a little surprised. Joe, you're itching to get in here.
Well, I don't know if you just heard, Eduardo Rodriguez is now suffering from dead arm and will not be starting the season for the Red Sox. Nathan Eovaldi will start in the opener, so already one major step back. Obviously, Chris Sale's still rehabbing. There's a race whether he gets back before Sebi in that June-July area, so we'll see which of these guys gets back first. But I think for the Red Sox, I think you're going to run into the same issues you ran into last year. I think you traded too much good talent. I think the pitching has too many injuries. I don't think there's enough depth there. I think their bullpen still isn't that great. I love Bobby Dahlbeck. I know he's a quick fan favorite in Boston, but Jackie Bradley Jr. is gone.
Mookie Betts is
obviously gone. Not only is Mookie Betts gone, but his not replaced. And to watch him win a World Series, I think if you're a Red, it's like, oh, great. You
said that and I laughed. You noticed that, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. But yeah, look, they're off to a great start. I would say this, look, never count the Red Sox out. You don't count the Red Sox out. I have a feeling that the Red Sox will finish third in this division, that either they will overtake Tampa or they will overtake Toronto. And I don't think most other people are thinking that right now. I know Vegas has, like I said, the Yankees to win 96, Blue Jays 87, Tampa 86, and the Red Sox to win 79.5, which is hilarious. I don't know exactly what that means. I think the Red Sox will probably do better than that, or I think one of those teams will do worse. Maybe they settle in at 85, but I think they'll finish in third place. look, the Red Sox had a lot to overcome last year in a weird year with the COVID thing. I think it was more than any team could possibly bear. To have Sale out, to have and I'll tell you what, I feel horrible for Eduardo Rodriguez, who really stepped in to this Red Sox team. Last year he got COVID. Had some heart arrhythmia, apparently got that under control at least, and now is suffering from dead arm. I feel this guy's such a gamer. And I feel like he's faced so much adversity, and Erod finds his way back. So not an ideal start for the Red Sox, not the kind of news you wanted coming out of spring training, which is a couple days left. But yeah, I think this team will be a lot better next year. And I think we'll have to start talking Yankees Red Sox a little more serious next season, starting 2022. Yeah,
a lot of people like the sound of that,
but they're a joke right now. No, I'm just kidding. That was just for Tyler.
Yes, I mean, and you have to, right? There's two Yankee fans on the show, right? So that's on him. I think the biggest thing is they are playing good spring ball right now. They are. There's a few players who are playing great ball themselves. Like I said, Erod, Perez, Dahlbeck. I think that once the reality hits of the regular season, that's going to fizzle out. Like the reality of them not having the best outfield in baseball anymore, the reality of them not having Chris Sale or Nathan Eovaldi, as Tyler and I have talked about already. He's not the player he was in 2018. At least it's what it's looking like from his spring numbers. His ERA is over 10 in 7 innings. I mean, he's not dealing the way he was dealing in the past. So I think I'll agree I could see the Sox finishing third. That makes sense for what they've been doing in the spring and for what I think they're going to translate to in the regular season. That's a good spot for them. The last question I want to ask about the Sox is, who do we think will be the most pivotal person in the Red Sox 2021 organization? Who's going to be the guy that we look at and say, damn, this team would not have been as good as we were, or at least where we ended up in the last game of the season if it weren't for this person? I do have a person in mind.
Boy, I mean, I would guess probably Xander Bogaerts. I think look, if the Red Sox don't have a good season at all, I mean, that guy's going to put up numbers. And he's going to be the exciting ball player he is. So I think, if I'm a Red Sox fan going into this year, I'm just all about, what Xander Bogaerts level he can get at. I mean, we mentioned Bobby Dahlbeck. I don't see him being a superstar player, but I think you find a guy like that, kind of a blue collar guy like that, really coming through and he's an easy fan favorite to have. He reminds me of Pedroia, almost like a Pedroia Youkilis hybrid. This guy. So I know that's the kind of guy the Red Sox fans usually love. So I think he'll be great. But I mean, this team's building around Xander Bogaerts. That was ultimately what they've decided to do, and that is probably the right move in the grand scheme of things.
For sure. I agree with you saying Xander Bogaerts. I think he's next level. I honestly think Xander Bogaerts is underrated, if you ask me. I think not enough people talk about Xander Bogaerts being the good player, the great player he is. Like, his numbers are almost unreal. I've actually compared to being Trout-like in some seasons. Like, he's that good. However, I think the most pivotal spot on the Red Sox organization this year will be Rafael Devers. I think he is going to have a great season. I think he's going to finally realize how good he is. I had a professor in college, and one of my sociology classes, big Red Sox fan. He's from Boston, and he always talked about how Devers is so young and he doesn't know how good he is. He just says Devers goes out there, he swings, he puts the bat in the ball. He's going to make some good contacts, make a couple of good plays. But if you look at the way he plays, he just doesn't. It seems like he doesn't know how good he is. And I mean, I somewhat agree. I think Devers just sort of doesn't take himself too seriously, which is a good thing. But at the same time, I feel this is going to be a season where he's really going to do big things for Boston, because he realizes that the spot where Mookie Betts was, the spot where JBJ was, the spot where Andrew Benintendi was, those are now empty. Those were the big-time fan favorites. You forgot about Benny.
I forgot about Benintendi. Oh, my God. Yes. Jeez.
Yeah. Those are the big-time spots. I mean, if you go to a Red Sox game, they're screaming Benny, they're screaming Mookie, they're screaming for JBJ. Devers doesn't really get that much love. He really doesn't. Bogaerts is the same. He's underrated. And those two guys know that those spots are empty, and I think Devers is going to try and take it. So that's my hot take for the Red Sox 2021 season performance. Joe, anything else you want to say about the Sox, or we jump into our boys here over in
We might as well
New
get to our
York.
boys because there's actually some breaking Yankee news. Not sure if you just saw it.
No, what'd you get?
The rotation is set. Cole, Kluber, Herman.
Whoa.
Yeah, Domingo, who's been outstanding this spring.
It's not we know he's good.
Yes. I think most people, again, Davy Garcia sent down. The headlines yesterday was Garcia had sent to AAA. Domingo Herman's wrapped up number 5 spot. Well, he didn't wrap up to 5th spot. Nope. He jumped Jordan Montgomery and James Talion, and it looks like basically what the Yankees will do is they'll go so Cole, Kluber, Herman. I think Montgomery gets the next start, and then it'll go Cole, Kluber, Herman, Talion. It's going to go something like that now. So they're going to mess around with that rotation a little bit. But Domingo Herman, that's a big surprise for me. Just popped up, and I was like, oh. But I will say this. I was just reading some scouting reports yesterday from some NL scouts, and everybody there said Domingo Herman should be the Yankees' number 2 starter because outside of Garrett Cole, he has got the nastiest stuff on the pitching staff. As good as Corey Kluber's pitched, and he's pitched well this spring, Herman's been better, and he's looked amazing. And, dude, for a guy who, when he got here, there was talk about whether he should play or not, whether his teammates wanted him there, and to jump up and grab that 3 spot is, wow.
That's huge. That's big. That is big news. And you talk about how good the pitching has been from Herman to Cole to Kluber to Tyone. The Yankees are 13-10, right? 4 days left till opening day. Notables during the spring play have been Kluber, who we just discussed, who's 1-0 with an ERA of 1.86. Gleyber Torres I'm very excited that Gleyber is doing what he's been doing. I'm excited to see what he does. He is 237 with 3 homers. Giancarlo Stanton has an average of 333 with a single homer. And Jameson Tyone, who we already discussed, has an ERA of 1.08, and his record is 1-1. So are we surprised what the Yankees done in the spring play? To put it simply, no.
No, yeah, this is what you expect. I think my favorite thing I've seen, though, is Giancarlo Stanton has been swinging a good bat. And I mean, like, not trying to hit home runs, but just getting what he gets and drilling it.
Exactly.
He hit a 120-mile-an-hour grounder the other day. I like that. We like that.
We like that. We like that as fans, obviously, of our boys. When he's smashing the ball, Stanton's the only guy that can do that. Like, Stanton's the only guy that'll hit a 120-mile-an-hour line drive and it'll be an out. Like, something like the right fielder will just snag it. It's like, oh, all right, that's cool. Yeah. So no, I'm not surprised, right? And as you know, we knew the Yankees were going to be this good. Will the Yankees continue to play solid ball in 2021? Absolutely, right? We already said they're going to win their division. So did the rest of baseball, and the betting odds have them in the World Series by a lot.
Yeah, you got to figure like this, right? Let's say Kluber, let's say Talion, let's say they don't have it. Let's say that they can't make it, or they're not healthy. They can't stay healthy this season, or they're not the guys that they were before their injuries. The Yankees still have Davy Garcia.
Sure, absolutely.
At AAA, and Luis Severino will be back, like we said, around June or so. Jules Chassin, like I said, a quality starter. I mean, the Yankees have so many. Jonathan Loaizaga. There's so many guys that they could plug in the event that and again, if all of those 5 guys in the rotation pitch well, at some point, you're going to have to be like, oh, geez, who do we take out? Yeah. I heard Booney even talking about a 6-man rotation.
Well, if you have that much star power, what else are you going to do? You're not going to not put a guy out there if he's dealing.
Yeah.
That's like a guy hitting 3 home runs in a game and taking them out the next day. Like, you're not going to do that. Right?
I think that's a comforting thought, too, because if you're Montgomery or you're, I guess it'll be Taillon now, who will be 4 and 5, you don't have to necessarily worry about if you're not out pitching the other 4 guys that you're going to lose a spot, that maybe we'll go with 6 guys.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
The Yankees have so many options and so much depth that again, it would take 2018 injury decimation for this team to not be successful this year.
Please don't bring that on us. Don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. All right.
I got to mention it. Got to mention it. Got to put it out there. I'm going to face it. Head on.
That was a scary, scary season as a Yankee fan.
That was insane. That made
no
sense.
It didn't, but they still played amazing and better than everyone else, which is.
I think the best part of that season was it ended up with the Yankees needing and acquiring Edwin Encarnacion.
Tyler and I were at his first game.
Is that right?
Yeah, they traded for Encarnacion. Tyler and I were at the game the next day in New York. We had bleacher seats. It was a great time. That was if Tyler's still listening. That was the time where we were. Yes. That was I
love that guy. I like entertaining ball. My favorite player as a kid, Noah, was Reggie Jackson.
Yes.
That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
That should say a lot about me. I saw Reggie Jackson hot dogging it, running his mouth, and I was like, that's my guy.
Exactly.
And it's been on ever since.
100%. But yeah, that game that Tyler and I went to, we sat next to a group of like 5 or 6 dudes, and they had pink ponchos. No rain. But they put the ponchos on during the 7th inning stretch, and they were like these bright neon pink ponchos. And it was one of the most fun games I've ever had in my life. Like we were the last rows of the bleachers, just got these last minute seats the day before. You know how those days are, right? You see cheap seats, you're like, you know what? Let's buy them. Who cares? Like we're gonna have a blast regardless.
That's awesome.
But the last question here: who is the Yankees guy going to be? Who is it? A lot of people say Cole. A lot of people say Judge is going to have a great season. Stanton's going to turn it around. Sanchez, who knows? Joe, who is your guy that's going to lead this Yankee organization to the insane amount of wins they predicted to get in 2021?
Well, look, Cole's going to be Cole, so expected. For me, the most pivotal guy to this season is Gary Sanchez. And I say this because, look, if Gary struggles, they're going to have to make some sort of move.
Yeah.
Right. They'll have to figure something out or struggle through the year with him and Higashioka and some sort of, if Gary is right, if Gary can catch like he did back in 2016, if Gary can hit like he was hitting in 2016 and 2018, the Yankees will win the World Series easily. If Gary remains this big albatross problem behind the plate, then it's going to get a lot more difficult. And again, when no disrespect to Kyle Higashioka or to Eric Cat or anybody else, when Gary's not in your lineup, it's not your best lineup. Plain and simple. And if the Yankees are put in that position where they can't use their best lineup because this guy's clueless again, it's going to be a real problem for the Yankees. I feel like the bounce back is coming for this guy. I think he's going to start to put it a little bit together. I think some of the defensive issues, you can deal with some of that. Just stop messing with this guy's head. Let him get back to playing baseball. If this guy puts up, and you've heard a lot of his teammates talk about him putting up an MVP type of year. If that happens, it will not even be close. The Yankees will blow out the AL East.
Oh, yeah.
They'll easily win the American League, and then it's on with probably the Dodgers. But to me, Gary is the key to making this all work.
Testify, brother.
He can make it very simple, or he can make this a near impossible task where it's going to be scraping it together. And obviously, I'm hoping for the former, not the latter.
All right, hey, I'm right there with you, right? I mean, you've heard me trash Sanchez before, but why would I not want my guy to do well? Why would I
Here's
want
the
guy
thing,
to do well?
Noah, I defend Gary Sanchez, but I acknowledge he's playing like garbage. He deserves the criticism. What I don't call him lazy, because he's not. If you think Gary Sanchez is lazy, you're lazy. Your take is lazy. And you're probably, I think, a little racist. I noticed nobody ever calls white players lazy.
You're right.
You never hear that about white players.
You're right.
It's because darker skinned athletes, it looks more natural, I think, to most people. And you just assume that they don't have to work at it. They do, though. Ask anybody, they'll tell you Gary works so hard. This is killing Gary Sanchez. Dude's 26 years old. He went and played winter ball this year.
Yeah.
Because he's lazy. He hears what people are saying. All of his teammates are like, dude, this guy wants to succeed more than anybody, not for himself, but for the team.
Absolutely.
He's extremely coachable. We've talked about this the last time I was on the show. He's had 4 different coaches over the last 5 years showing him how they want him to catch. Just pick a style and let him go with it, for crying out loud. Then he's back in the come time to hit, and it's all in his head. Let him go out there. He shortened up his stroke. He got off to a hot start. He is a streaky hitter, so I know everyone's like, oh, look, he's in midseason form, hitting like $190 again. He's a streaky hitter. Mm-hmm. In a 60-game season, bro, there's not enough time for him to hot and cold it. You give him 162, he can hit like 250, 260. He can hit 35, 40 home runs. That's what the Yankees need out of Gary Sanchez. I think it's there. I acknowledge it's a problem, and I think it's the biggest problem the Yankees have.
Absolutely. And I agree with 100%. If they can figure out that area, and if Gary Sanchez can get to that point where we hope he's going to be, that's going to be big news for New York. Easily all day, it's going to be easy money. My quick take here on who I think a pivotal spot of the Yankees organization is going to be is Corey Kluber this season. I think Kluber is looking to prove himself, as funny as it sounds, right? 2-time Cy Young Award winner, having to prove himself. I'm very excited to see what he can do this season. If you ask me, Corey Kluber is going to earn himself a 3-year contract with the Yankees this season. He's going to go out there. I think he's going to be the biggest threat of Garrett Cole winning the Cy Young. Okay. He is going to dominate, as you said, as he's done before, as we know he can do. And he just simply wasn't able to with injuries over the last 2 seasons. It's not his fault. It's not like he just faltered and didn't have it anymore. He didn't lose it. He never lost it. He got hurt. He's back. They always say a pitcher's never the same as they were before an injury. I call bullshit for this year. I think Corey Kluber is going to decimate the entire AL East, and then everyone in their path on the way to winning a World Series. All day, every day. Easy money. If you love podcasts, make sure you visit clovercrestmedia.com for a wide selection of great shows covering sports, business, relationships, pop culture, politics, and true crime. There are over 26 shows on the hashtag CMG Network, and if you don't find one you like, you can start one of your own. We can help you launch your podcast for as little as $15 per month. Clovercrestmedia.com is the website to visit. Make sure you click on the link and check out your favorite CMG sports podcasts, as well as blogs, videos, and latest information. Joe, I can't thank you enough for joining us today on Baseball with the Bard. Tyler wasn't able to make it. I hope you enjoyed your time. I know I enjoyed talking with you.
Dude, always a pleasure. Great to pinch hit. Anytime you need me, I'm always ready to jump in.
For sure. And as we always say, next man up. So we got to keep the ball rolling, keep the entertainment coming. Thank you all so much. We'll see you next time.
Time for Baseball with the Bard.
Clovercrest Media Group presents a CMG podcast. Keys to the City.
Keys to the city, baby. When you see us, so you know.
Crossed up by Kobe, little floater to Shaq, and then Shaq goes like this, and the rest is history. Pay attention. Don't tell me what to do, devil woman. But speaking of those Lakers, but I hold on. But I didn't make my. I didn't make my. I said Denver's gonna win. Yeah, you did. You said that. There's no other show like that. Clovercrest is doing great things right now.